Nicole, and I am currently recording my vlog for the student in the digital age. I'm going to start first with what I discovered from my cohort. There were a lot of questions that we had in common. The most important thing was what? And we have all of these examples, and how, and all of these examples. However, I want to focus a little bit more connected to things that pop out from all of the questions that I didn't include, and I thought that it was really important and useful to have. So if we start over here with Franco's, and we have here this one connected to Lia Garcia. More information from your teachers. So it is extremely important to see how connected could technology, the use of technology, is to the subject and to the grades that you're covering. So what I noticed was that only these two classmates were the ones that started asking who and what grades. It's extremely important to notice that not every single use of technology is going to be beneficial for everyone. If we're going to compare someone working in a college, someone working with 12th graders, it's going to be extremely different, the use of technology that they will use. So getting to know this scope first is going to be essential for us to know whether it's applicable or not, what we're having. And as well, depending on what age we want to focus on, the use of technology will be different. We have then over here as well another one from Franco, the same as this one from Jordan. This is extremely important. Setting up boundaries, learning how to deal with the extreme use of technology, or at the same time, what type of limits are you going to put your students when it comes to technology and the use of technology? As well, to know what other teachers have banned. For some teachers, the use, for example, of ChatGPT or the use of technology such as Kahoot could be beneficial for their lessons, but could be complicated for others. So it's important as well to hear or what others teachers have experienced connected to the use of this technology. Last but not least, there are two other ones that I want to check. Stephanie and connected to Jefferson. So one thing that I noticed was that most of my classmates, including myself, we didn't talk about failure. But getting to know failure, it's really important. If we know beforehand what other teachers have already experienced and how they have dealt with failure, or how have they dealt with some difficulties trying to include technology, such as parents, will be able to save us some difficulties trying to incorporate technology in our classroom. As I wanted to have a more broadened perspective of what type of technologies people use and how, depending on the group that they're focusing on, technology will change, I decided to interview different teachers connected to different classrooms or grades that they're currently teaching. The first teacher was a kindergarten teacher who works with 3-year-old kids. The second one was an IB math teacher who works with 10th graders and 11th graders. And the third one was an English teacher in my private academy who works with teens and adults. What type of tools did they use? So the first one was YouTube, Scissor, and this was connected to the kindergarten teacher. Then for the math teacher, we have things such as Python that help him use binomial distribution. And for the English teacher, one thing that was shocking was the use of ChatGPT. So she has been able to incorporate ChatGPT in her lessons by teaching them how to use it, how to write correctly prompts, and at the same time learning as well the advantages and disadvantages of how to use this artificial intelligence. When would it be a disadvantage as an ESL student? The attitude and the critical thinking that you need to have about it. One thing that they did have in common was the fact that all of them, as they work with non natives, use translator or dictionaries. How are you going to teach students to search for reliable sources? In order to have this type of interaction or to translate, it's going to be really important. So for my student inventory, I divided my survey in 5 sections. The first section covering personal information. What did I wanted to know here the most was their nationality, just to know as well their backgrounds, and at the same time what mother tongue they had. To my surprise, this was extremely interesting as I thought that most of my students' mother tongue was Lithuanian. It's not the case. Most of them speak Polish and even Russian as their mother tongue. Another thing that was quite interesting was that most of them, English is their third language that they're achieving, third or even fourth for some of them. For the second part, I wanted to know more about their interest. One thing that was interesting for me was as well seeing where do my students consume and produce their English the most. One of the things is that I noticed that all of them consume their English by social media and they produce their English in social media. So probably this tells me a lot that my students are going to know a lot of slang than young generations manage or use, as well as idioms. But maybe it's going to be harder for them to actually learn how to analyze critically some texts. Then I went with school. I wanted to know more about what was difficult for them at school and what was their strength. 4 out of 9 likes math, but they dislike Lithuanian. This was interesting for me because I thought that Lithuanian was going to be one of the easiest lessons for them. Yet for them, English tends to be one of the easiest one rather than Lithuanian. Another thing that was interesting was to learn what was their best learning experience and their worst, and how is this connected to things that I will be able to improve or implement. Then I went to teacher-student relationship. Here the students had the possibility to pick from strongly agree or strongly disagree. Each one of them tells me a little bit more what they believe about the relationship that they should have with their teachers, as this is one of the biggest problematics that Lithuanian schools, public schools, have, the relationship between the students and the teachers. Last but not least, I wanted to know what type of learners were they. So I started analyzing first, how do they study for a quiz, if they know how to study and different type of studying skills, and as well what is easier for them to either remember or study or understand a new topic. As well, if my students work better under pressure or not.